On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, what are the X factors and keys to winning the NBA Finals for the Oklahoma City Thunder?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. On today's show, brought to you by Monarch Money, we're diving into the NBA Finals as the OKC Thunder are taking on the Indiana Pacers. We have X factors, we have keys to the series with Michael Martin. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube and Michael on Sports on Twitter. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The stage is set. It's the NBA Finals. It's the Thunder Pacers. It's the first time since the luxury tax was implemented that neither team in the finals is paying the tax. This will be our sixth non-tax paying winner ever. First time since 2007 that neither team in the finals played on Christmas Day. First title winner is guaranteed in the matchup for the first time since 2006, Heat and Mavs. We'll have a first-time champion out of this when it's all said and done. And the shortest distance between two home arenas, great news for us, since 1971, whenever the old Baltimore Bullets and Bucks got together. Best offense, best defense, two stars in Shai and Haliburton, who will be a part of that Netflix starting five. Michael, how excited are you for this NBA Finals?
I'm just thrilled. We have the flyover finals. We have the power friendship finals. I'm ready to go. I'm glad it's close enough, like you mentioned, for us to keep our drive alive here. But you set the stage perfectly of just like all the stuff going into the series. There's a whole lot of fun aspects and different things going into this series that we're going to talk about soon.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see these two teams compete, regardless of what shares it does per the Nelson ratings. This is going to be a very fun NBA Finals, and we'll have it all for you here on Locked On Thunder, Locked On Pacers, Locked On NBA. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Michael, we're going to have our X factors and our keys. I think that my biggest X factor / key is going to be Rick Carlisle, because this is his sixth NBA Finals in some capacity. He's done masterful coaching jobs in the past, especially, the 2011 Mavs, and even, maximizing his rosters that didn't get to the finals, but squeezing out every, creative and competitive advantage that he's been dealt with those rosters. And how does Mark handle the adjustment battles between a guy like Rick Carlisle? Because the biggest key on the floor, I think, is Tyrese Haliburton, because how much pressure do the Thunder want to send to him, because they're used to swarming the ball. They're used to getting into guards and their handle, but he's an elite playmaker. And he's also flanked by incredible secondary playmakers, to where if he gets the ball out of his hands fast, as he typically does, he's tossing it to either open scorers or guys who you also trust to make split-second decisions, which then can really bend the defense and hurt a team that is so great in rotations. But the more that there's ball movement, the more possibility for breakdowns of that rotation. And as we know, the Thunder typically concede corner threes, and this is not a team you want to do that against. So how the Thunder handle Tyrese Haliburton and what adjustments that they make to their overall defensive identity, I think is going to be a big key. And of course, that goes back to the coaching battle.
Yeah, with the coaching battle, that's something I had later on, but just you can't control your matchups, as we know. But two of the coaches that Mark has faced so far have been guys who have been interim, who later got promoted, but got promoted to interim late in the season after a couple of guys got fired. And then Chris Finch, pretty established, but Rick Carlisle probably has more playoff success and more playoff experience than everyone Mark has faced combined, including Jason Kidd, Willie Green. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those two guys match up. But I'd say my number one X factor is somewhat related to what you said about Tyrese Haliburton. I remember I said this back in the Wolves series, and I once again am saying it again, of just like, look who the Pacers have faced. I think it's going to be a real jump in terms of the defensive personnel that this Thunder team is able to throw at them. Indiana so far has played guys like Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, DeAndre Hunter, and whoever the Bucks were throwing out there as point of attack defenders. It's going to be leaps and bounds, just like a massive adjustment night and day, going from those guys to Case Wallace, Lou Dort, and Alex Caruso. You can even throw Dub in there. But those three main guards, I think it's going to be a massive jump for Haliburton. And I'm really interested to see how those guys matchup with him, and if they're able to slow him down, because just looking at them physically, it feels like they're going to have a better shot than just about anybody he's faced so far.
Yeah, and I mean it's an embarrassment of riches for Oklahoma City that throwing in even J-Dub, who's an all-defensive defender, is just illustrating how great this historic unit has been. I think that J-Dub will be the key of that Thunder's defense because he's going to have to either match up with Siakam. He's going to especially have to be disciplined and athletic the entire series, playing the passing lanes and closing out to the shooters off of those secondary actions that we talked about with the Pacers being able to find guys who can knock down threes and create advantages. But yeah, how the Thunder match up with the Pacers, who they deploy on Tyrese Haliburton and Siakam especially, will be huge because as they've done this whole postseason, they have frustrated or outright taken away the opponent's top options. I mean, they've done it every single series. As far as Jokic standards go, they took away Jokic. Now they didn't when you look at the counting stats. But as far as what you would expect from Jokic, you couldn't have designed a better system to stop him, and he still almost was able to beat the Thunder, which is just a testament to how great he was. But they took away Jamal Murray. They took away the Grizzlies for whatever that's worth. And then they just absolutely obliterated Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. And they find that same success against these two guys who do present like just a wholly different dynamic than what they've faced to this point. I'm very curious how the Thunder will match up with Siakam. What bodies do they want to throw at him?
Yeah, we've seen the Thunder really cross match, and I think that's something that you're going to see a ton, where Siakam, they love running transition, and he just got easy bucket after easy bucket in transition, just outrunning guys like Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson. So I'd be sort of fearful of that, of like matching up Hartenstein with him, whether that's starting out in the second rotations, cross matches, whatever. But I think that's going to be really key. So the Thunder have enough big defensive guards, I think, that they'll be able to handle him. But you can't just let a guy like that just sort of just run loose. And then to the point you mentioned about Jokic, I had that in my notes as well, about can you make Haliburton one-dimensional? Mark talked about it earlier today at practice, or yesterday, about Haliburton reminds him a lot of Steve Nash, of like his dynamic scoring is what opens up the passing. And can you make him one-dimensional? You're not going to close off one or the other, but can you make him lean towards one way? And you mentioned Jokic. We saw what this defense did to Jokic. That was his lowest assist per game total in a playoff game or a playoff series in 3 seasons. Can you do that to Haliburton? Can you make him lean towards more scoring where he's not getting guys going as much around him? Or can you make him more of a passer where his shooting doesn't open up things as much?
Yeah, that's going to be very fascinating just to see how they handle the Tyrese Haliburton matchup. I think that my next key and X factor is going to be the Thunder's three-point shooting, because I fully believe in the Pacers' ability to find success from beyond the arc, and OKC has to keep close. They have to keep pace, for lack of a better term. Can Alex Caruso stay hot in the playoffs? Can J-Dub shoot the way he shot in Game 4 against Minnesota consistently, where he's like a three-point shooting play finisher for this team, especially sharing the floor with Shai? And then can Chet Holmgren punish Indiana for cross-matching? Because if they don't cross-match, then he's going to be able to pull out Turner out from the rim. So in all likelihood, you're going to see open opportunities for Chet from 3. Can he make you pay? And then this has been a Thunder team that has capable shooters, that has, since the turn of the new year, had been a really staunch three-point shooting team. But in these playoffs, they haven't had some eye-popping series shooting the ball from beyond the arc. What if this is their series where they actually shoot the ball really well collectively? So I think that will be a massive factor that will swing this series either to the Thunder's direction, to Indiana's direction, or just kind of keep it somewhere in the middle. But it's going to be a big reason for kind of the cause and effect of what happens in these finals.
Yeah, the three-point shooting, if the Pacers shoot it really well and the Thunder don't, they get a fighting chance in the series. They can take it because three-point shooting's so big. If the Thunder shoot well and the Pacers don't, this one's over. You can just wrap it up. If both teams shoot well, I think it favors the Thunder. But yeah, the Pacers number 1 in three-point percentage in the playoffs. The Thunder around middle of the pack, but we've seen it be in just like weighted heavily in just a few games. Like we've talked about those stats with Isaiah Joe, where most of his threes in the playoffs came in like 2 or 3 games. I think that is a factor with the Thunder where it hasn't been super consistent. It's been more cold than hot. So I'm interested to see that as well. And then the next point I had was just about, you normally relate to this to football, like complementary football, but the Thunder have to play complementary basketball. Mark a lot of times has talked about, it's hard to get the offense going, when we're taking the ball out of the net every time. That's got to be a key of finishing off possessions, making the Pacers take it in the full court and create these slower half court possessions. You can't miss these layups, you can't miss these threes, and let the Pacers spring out. Make them score against your all-time elite half-court defense and all these defenders you have. Don't bail them out by just taking bad shots and letting them spring out.
I think that that's a great point, and it leads us to what I think will be the biggest story of this series, which is Indiana's pace and how the Thunder can combat that, all coming up. First one, say right now, but good friends over at Monarch Money. Go check out Monarch Money today, because if you've ever checked your bank account and wondered where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. You can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Make sure you go check it out today, because it's a convenient all-in-one app. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan your long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off of your first year. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Here talking with Michael Martin. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, and Michael on Sports on social media. We're talking Thunder Pacers. We're talking NBA Finals, and you mentioned the pace of the game and the Thunder having to finish off possessions with buckets to not allow the Pacers to get easy transition opportunities. I also think that the Thunder have to remain disciplined and not taking plays off, which sounds elementary, but there are moments throughout an NBA game that feel predictable. Like it feels like you know it's going to happen. You can kind of take a beat for a second. And most of the time that happens after made shots. And the Thunder make a lot of their shots inside the arc, in the mid-range, at the rim. And they usually have a few bodies in there as well that could lead to trouble against this Pacers team, because even after made buckets, the Pacers are able to quickly inbound the ball and then throw an outlet pass to someone streaking down the court and get numbers in that way. Just artificially creating transition is something that Indiana has been great at, and it's something that the Thunder have faced before, most notably with Denver, where they had to have the permanent sub with Dylan Jones to try to slow things down against Jokic and how quickly that he inbounds the ball. The Pacers are the same way, to where it's like even after a made shot, you typically think that you have a second or two before the ball comes up. Indiana's going to try to go. And so you cannot, kind of, to your point, have a situation where they're running nonstop. They're running after made shots, and especially running after misses and running after turnovers and running after rebounds. Like, you just cannot let this thing spiral. And so one of the biggest things to control would be always being disciplined and getting back defensively, because this Thunder defense will be able to suffocate any team in the half court. But whenever they have numbers against them, like any other team, while they're a great transition defense as well, it's obviously a lot harder in transition. So that kind of is the story, which stems with the next X factor. Both teams protect the ball at a high level. The Thunder force turnovers at a historic rate. Something has to give. Like, if there's just going to be no turnovers at all from either team, that creates more opportunities for offense. That creates more opportunities for scoring. That's going to be a massive, high-scoring affair. But if the Thunder can create turnovers on this Pacers team, then the entire equation changes. So how can the Thunder find ways to stay true to their defensive identity and get those turnovers? Because those turnovers are what allow OKC to get these blowout wins and get separation on the scoreboard. It's not an avalanche of threes. It's not an onslaught of buckets. It's the turnovers leading to easy offense. And they're going to have to find ways to generate that against Indiana, who Indiana has a very low turnover rate. OKC's is lower. Like that's how good both teams are at protecting the ball. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the margins look in the turnover battle. Perhaps it's not 21-7 like some of these Thunder turnovers are, but in a series like this where both teams protect the ball well, 14-7 would be a huge lopsided win for OKC in the turnover column, just based upon precedent from both teams. So I'm very curious what the turnovers look like.
Yeah, I think they'll force turnovers to Thunder, but I don't think it'll be an explosion like you mentioned. I think there'll be more than usual. It kind of goes back to the point I talked about with the defensive upgrade that they're going to see against the Thunder being the Pacers. And I think that's going to matter a lot. And I think just the amount of defensive playmakers all over the floor, and this defense is so good that you can't play conservative offense against them. You're going to have to take some chances, and because of that, that's going to generate more turnovers. It's sort of a chicken or the egg thing of like, what do you do? But the Thunder are going to get turnovers. That's just one of those things. I think that they're going to be able to play really physically with a guy like Tyrese Haliburton, where sort of his thin frame is going to be a disadvantage against a lot of the Thunder perimeter defenders. But I'm right there with you. I think the Thunder, they're not going to be a team. Well, maybe we'll see. I think they play really well in transition and up and down game, but like that's Indiana's MO. And what you don't want to do is play so fast that you're playing right into their game. I think that fast is a better tempo for the Thunder, but no one plays better fast than the Pacers because like this has been their MO for like multiple years now.
Yeah, you don't want to be out of control because you're trying to do something that you're not accustomed to. You can play fast at your tempo, so to say. Like it's not just about speed, but the tempo of how you play fast, which is going to be key for OKC. My next key, I think, is what's actually going to define the series, honestly. I think that for as much as we can dive into the nitty-gritty each game, who has more hero stories to tell at the end of this? Who has more inflection points and reflection points when this series is done? Because you've seen throughout these playoffs, both teams have a very similar story. Like the Thunder do not get here without Jay Will changing that Denver series. And the Thunder might not get here without Kenrich Williams just annihilating Julius Randle in the second half of game number 1 when the Timberwolves looked pretty potent. They have Alex Caruso. They have Casey Wallace. Lou Dort is capable of big games. Wiggins was good in the first round. Like the Thunder have plenty of guys to turn to that can change a game, that can change, and give you a different look and archetype on the court that now you have to adjust to. But so does Indiana. It's like Ben Shepherd has won them a game. Obi Toppin's won them games. Thomas Bryant was huge in a closeout game of the New York Knicks. They have Nembhard. They have Nesmith. They have Ben Mathurin. Like that, each team has a lot of guys who they're not afraid to turn to and who are going to have to try to inject life into this series. And on the biggest stage, in the biggest moments, who are the guys that they turn to past the Haliburtons and Siakams and Shays and Chets and Dubs of the world? Who do they turn to and who has more success in that kind of gray area of your roster, I think will define who wins this series.
Yeah, who are the others? I mean, we've talked about it before, but like Danny Green almost won Finals MVP a few years ago, or almost a decade ago, with the Spurs until that sort of Game 6 happened with the Ray Allen shot. Like, he was unbelievable. He shooting like 45% from 3. So things like this can happen. Caruso's been out of his mind, as you mentioned. Lou Dort in Game 5, remember he shot terrible and Mark stuck with him and hit like 5 in the fourth quarter. So these things can change and swing some things. I'm interested to see how deep Mark goes into the bench. It seems like, at least in Game 6, Isaiah Joe was sort of shorter leash on him. We've seen more Kenrich minutes. Do you feel like this is a Kenrich series?
I think that it very well could be. I think that you could get to a point where Siakam is just having his way, and you just want someone to go in there with more physicality, kind of more of a tone-setting type of defensive archetype on him. And then Kenrich can go out there, play really good defense, and parlay that into it being his series, because he's no stranger to just having buckets fall into his lap. Like, he's able to hit the open three, and then every once in a while he has these like pump fake drive into the mid-range, fall away, elbow midi. It's like when the shot leaves his hands, you're throwing your arms up like there's no shot this goes in, and then it just bottoms of the net for Kenny Hustle. So it very well could be, if I had to pick like whose series it is in the sense of who do we not bake into the rotation, I'd probably pick Kenrich Williams.
Yeah, I think this is a Kenrich Williams series too. I think that Isaiah Joe, like we've talked about, you throw him out there. Are you hot tonight? Nope. Try it again tomorrow. But I don't think that he's somebody you just sit out there for sustained minutes and hope it comes back around for him, because he just hasn't been that type of shooter in the playoffs. But Kenrich is a guy who I really believe in. Not going to be scared. He's going to go out there attack. He's going to be a leader. He's going to be physical. So I think that he'll have his chance. I don't know that we see a lot of J-Will minutes in this series. But that brings me to my next point of Isaiah Hartenstein in a lot of these second units, or just the second unit center, because whether it's Thomas Bryant, whether it's Bradley, I just think the Thunder, those are matchups that you have to dominate. It's going to be different, but similar to like the Jokic matchup of just like they had no backup center at all. And these are the minutes you have to take advantage of, whether or not Halliburton's on the floor or not. And if you can somehow get Turner or Siakam in foul trouble here and there, that really, really limits their options. And that's something I'm really looking to, is just sort of how these bigs, especially a guy like Hartenstein on the boards, can impact those matchups against a Pacers team that's not small, but kind of limited in their size.
Yeah, and at times the Pacers do trade off the speed and tempo that they play with for imposing their will on the glass every single possession. And so I do wonder what that looks like too. And I wonder, the front court being a key, if you're putting out the double big lineups, how often are you putting them out? And then who are you putting in charge of defending Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam if the two bigs are on the floor, which I think will go kind of in depth into, especially after game one, which is predictably going to be called a feel out game for this series. But after game one, we're going to have some reactions to what that looks like. But especially in the non-Pascal, non-Turner minutes, yeah, I would agree. You have to be able to get the better of Indiana in that setting. Coming up, we're going to have Chet and Jada being keys, the emotions of the finals, and we're going to put Michael Martin on the hot seat. He's going to predict who's going to win the NBA Finals, all coming up. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day, talking with Michael Martin. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube, at Michael on Sports on social media. Michael, my last key, and then you can empty out your bag if you have any more. It's going to be Jada and Chet. Like, I know that we've been doing this whole are they ready thing all playoffs, but can they carry that momentum from that Timberwolves series into the NBA Finals, into the biggest stage, into the fact that you are 4 wins away from a legacy-defining moment of being this young and winning a ring, because they're going to need them to be the number 2 and number 3 option. Both those guys looked way more confident, way more aggressive, played with way more force in that Timberwolves series. After that Denver series, it seems like they learned a lot of lessons from that 7-game series against the Nuggets, and they've talked about it as such. What does it look like now against the Pacers in the NBA Finals, where sometimes the bright lights and the stage can get to you? I have a lot of confidence that this will be a series where both of them play well, but them actually executing that is going to be the defining factor, because if they don't play at the level that we expect them to, then the Thunder's chances are dramatically changed in this series. So it's a lot on them as, second and third year guys, but it's what has to happen.
Yeah, the Thunder are going to go as far as those guys sort of just help them after. We know what we're going to get from Shai, and I'll get to that in a second, but yeah, you got to get help on the back end, especially like we talked about the Pacers and sort of their backup unit. Backup units for the Thunder in terms of like Dub controlling the show, those have to go well. Those minutes have to go well. Chet has to be a rim protector, has to be a floor spacer where they can't just pack the paint against this Thunder team who hasn't been shooting well. So I'm right there with you. I'm expecting good series from both those guys. I feel like the hardest matchups for both of them defensively are already gone. So I think this is going to be interesting. I would even say, I don't think this is a bold take, but the Pacers are going to be the worst defense the Thunder comparably have faced since the Grizzlies. So I think that there's a lot on the table for Chet and Dub. And then as far as my last point, it's who's guarding Shai. I think that Neesmith, he'll have a chance. He's been sort of just had some weird injury stuff. Nemhard, Team Canada, maybe there's some familiarity there. We saw Nog get a lot of minutes in the last series and before that. But here's a stat. Shai versus Indiana this season. 39 points per game, 7 rebounds, 8 assists on 70.8 true shooting. All of those mark as top 5 against any opponent this year. So, who's guarding him? And maybe he plays so well that it doesn't even really matter if Dub's sort of off shooting-wise. But who guards Shai, and can they contain him? I trust Rick Carlisle is going to junk it up and throw some fun stuff out there. But Shai right now, it looks like he's set for a pretty good series.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I had Rick Carlisle at the top of my list, because you can think back to, especially as a Mavs fan, you can think back to all the different ways that he just simply won them series by being Rick Carlisle, and the talent didn't really say that they should have won the series, and even just kept them competitive in series that they had no business being competitive into. One example that I love to use is whenever he had to throw Boban in a junk zone against the Clippers, and just they were befuddled. And that's a great head coach over there with the Clippers. If you didn't know, they were just beside themselves for 10 minutes to start a game because of the Boban zone defense. It's he's going to have something like that. That's not sustainable against a guy like Shai. I think that the hope for Indiana would be that you keep Turner at the rim, and so you're cross-matching off of Chet / Lou Dort, whoever you think you want to cross-match off of, and just saying, you know what, if Lou goes 5 for 7 from 3, okay, we're going to lose the game anyway. But he might just go 2 for 10, and then we'll live with it. So you keep a guy at the rim. You have, I think, Nembhard be the point of attack defender, and then you're just extreme in the gaps. Like every time he tries to drive to either elbow, you just have a guy gap off the wing. And again, if the Thunder shoot the ball from 3 at a high clip that forces you to get punished for that strategy, you tip your cap and kind of move on. Because to your point, if you just let Shai do what he did in the regular season, or even anything close to it, none of the other stuff would matter. Like you're exactly right that if he can play at 39 points per game on 40, on 50,000 million percent true shooting percentage, then the Thunder are going to win. It doesn't matter what J-Dub's done. It doesn't matter what Isaiah Joe's done. Like none of the rest of the stuff matters. So like I think that you have to sell out a bit on SGA and force these other younger, unproven players to try to beat you. The terrible news for Indiana is they're good enough to, and like they just might beat you because they're that good no matter how young they are, and they have seen a lot of different stuff even in just this playoff run alone. But that's part of the emotions of the finals. I mean, this is going to be like legacy defining stuff, like Haliburton or Shai, just the top guys on the roster. Whoever gets a ring right now at this point in their career, oh my gosh, because Haliburton, like we don't talk dynasty with the Pacers the way we do with the Thunder. They're playing in an East that's completely up for grabs, and like they have a really strong foundation, a really strong core, and clearly they're good enough and well coached enough to make the finals. They did it this year. Like they're not just going to magically fall off the center of the earth anytime soon. And the Thunder, of course, their story is written of how great that they're set up for the future. So it's like if you get a ring right now, oh my gosh, like the history books will be remembering this one fondly for either side. Now the Thunder have home court. This is going to be a fun, fast-paced, similar yet different styles. It's a weird thing that we've kind of broke down throughout the show of how similar yet different they are. But both teams are starved for a ring. The fan bases are starved, which is going to make the environments crazy. The Pacers have been great on the road. They went up 2-0 in the Mecca, and now they come to the Paycom Center for the first two. But the Thunder have been protecting home court at an elite clip this postseason. It's the biggest stage that any of these guys, save for Pascal Siakam and Alex Caruso, have been on. Brandon predicted Thunder in 5. Michael Martin, Let's Talk Thunder, predicts Thunder or Pacers in
Thunder in 5. We talked about it. You mentioned the Pacers on the road. I think that's a real thing. I think they'll play better here, but it's also the Thunder. They've only had one loss at home, and that one was off a complete meltdown, the foul up 3 game, and then the Aaron Gordon 3, which, some things had to go their way. The Thunder had to mess up, but I think the Thunder take business, get up 2-0 at home. I think they split on the road and then come back in Game 5 and win it.
Well, you and Brandon have been the first two to predict this series, and you both picked Thunder in 5. It sounds like you're both very similar, though. In I know this is not going to sound great to the Pacers fans listening, but in a competitive 5-game series, which is going to have a lot of fun, tight basketball, that the Thunder just so happened to win at the end and get their first NBA championship. Michael, you've got a fantastic video locked, loaded, and ready to explode onto the scene today. Let them know what they can find cooked up at Let's Talk Thunder.
Yeah, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, you will find a video about Shai's MVP season and how it sort of compares to a lot of the great guard seasons by an MVP in league history. There's only been, I think, 14 guys to ever do it. So just seeing where he stacks up against all those guys from Jordan to Oscar Robertson, Kuzi, Westbrook, Harden, just like where does he stand historically, but got a lot of fun stats in there that you're not going to find anywhere else, but I hope you check it out.
And if you're a Thunder fan, which most of you listening to this are, you're going to really like the information and the stats that back up the claim that this is a historically great season for SGA from this video from Michael. Go check that out. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. And Michael, we're getting set. Finals Media Day. The NBA Finals start Thursday. We're covering the NBA Finals. Just how crazy of a run this has been to cover the finals this season, much less kind of the watching this team rebuild and reload, getting back to this point.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I kind of feel like the guys who have talked on the team about it, where it's like it's going to hit you later, but like we're so in the zone focused on it that like we can't zoom out at the scale. But man, we're very, very, I think I can speak for you. We're both very grateful for these opportunities that we get, all the support we're getting from a lot of people, and we're definitely going to reward everyone who's checking out our stuff with a lot of good information from talking at the finals, talking to players, coaches, whoever. But it should be a lot of fun.
It should be a lot of fun. You can make sure to go check out Let's Talk Thunder, check out Locked On Thunder, anywhere you get your podcast from. We still have our crossover episode with Tony East, Locked On Pacers, coming up for you. I believe Monday night was whenever me and Tony are going to have that scheduled. Monday around Thunder shoot around. So around Thunder practice. So I wish I could give you a better time. We're going to have a Locked On Thunder live stream, which maybe Michael Martin jumps back on for a double feature. You never know. You just never know who's going to hop into a Locked On Thunder live stream. I can say that because it's our first ever one, so I can make the rules up as we go on the first ever Locked On Thunder live stream. We're going to have Joe Mazzato, great guests coming up throughout the week. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.